I love you. With my heart, my liver, and even my kidney.
You are my everything.
Don't worry about your school fees. When I get home, I'll pack all my savings for you. Anything for you, my love.
Peju carefully turned the corn, roasting over the small charcoal stove at the junction. Smoke curled into the air, and the smell of roasted corn drifted across the path. Her hands were rough from work, but her spirit was determined. Her father had passed away years ago, leaving Peju and her aged mother to fend for themselves. There was no money for school fees, and Peju had no choice but to work. But she refused to give up her dreams. Every coin she earned was a small step toward her goal. One day, she would gather enough money to attend the University of Science in the village. That day, as she sold corn to villagers passing by, a tall young man approached. His clothes were clean and neat, his shoes polished. "Good afternoon, madam. How much for your roasted corn?" he asked politely. 200 naira, Peju replied, barely looking up. The young man smiled. Peju didn't notice his gaze, but he watched her carefully as she handed him the corn. This was Femi, a 300-level student at the university. Over the next few days, he became a regular visitor, buying corn after lectures. At first, Peju only saw him as another customer, but slowly, his presence began to warm her heart. She started to wait for him, hoping he would come. Their conversations grew longer, and soon a quiet affection blossomed between them. Evenings became special. Peju would glance down the road, heart fluttering when she saw Femi approaching. They laughed over small jokes, shared stories about their lives, and slowly opened their hearts. Peju admired Femi's intelligence and charm, while Femi admired her resilience and determination. He never judged her lack of formal education. Instead, he encouraged her dream of going to university. She prayed silently, "One day I will go to the University of Science and I will make him proud." Days turned into weeks and their bond deepened. No day passed without them meeting at her stall. Love grew quietly between the roasted corn and the warm smiles, but it was real, strong, and unspoken at first. Everything changed one fateful afternoon. Femi's parents were killed in a terrible motor accident. His world crumbled. He was alone, hopeless, and in his final year of university with no money to continue. Peju's heart ached for him. Without hesitation, she gave him all her savings, every coin she had worked for, every sacrifice she had made. "Take it, Femi. Don't give up. You will graduate," she whispered. Femi's eyes filled with tears. "Peju, I promise when I graduate and get a job, I will make life easier for you. I will take care of you forever." Femi graduated with honors, but life after university was harsh. Jobs were scarce. He sent applications to countless organizations, yet rejection after rejection left him frustrated and hopeless. Peju, seeing him idle, suggested gently, "Why don't you join me in the roasted corn business? Together, we can make money." Femi agreed reluctantly. Together, they worked long hours, roasting and selling corn. Their business grew, and slowly, life felt a little kinder. They laughed again, celebrated small victories, and for a while, it seemed their love could survive anything. One night, after closing the stall, they walked home along a quiet, lonely path. Suddenly, they heard hurried footsteps behind them. They were armed robbers that just robbed a nearby bank. "Police! Run!" one of them shouted. Frightened, Femi and Peju dove into the bushes, heart pounding. Then, out of the darkness, a large bag came flying and landed with a loud thud near them. The impact made Peju gasp and both of them froze, unsure of what it was. "Femi, please, let's leave now," Peju whispered. But Femi was curious. He opened the bag. It was full of cash, lots of cash. Their eyes widened. The robbers had thrown the bag into the bush because it was too heavy and they could not run well with it. Immediately, footsteps approached again. Without a second thought, Femi grabbed the bag and ran. "Femi, don't leave me!" Peju screamed, but he disappeared into the dark. The robbers arrived, their faces masked, voices rough with anger. "Where's her money? Give it to us," one of them barked. Peju shook her head violently. Panic consumed her. He took it," she stammered, her voice barely audible. One of the robbers raised a gun, pointing it directly at her. "If you don't bring out our money, we will shoot you." Before she could even react, a sharp pain exploded through her leg. She screamed, collapsing to the ground. Her body went limp, her vision blurred, and darkness began to creep in from the edges. Every nerve in her body screamed, but the worst was the fear, the betrayal, and the hopelessness that surrounded her. Peju awoke in a hospital bed, her mother holding her hand tightly. "Mother, where is Femi?" she whispered. Her mother shook her head. He ran away, Peju. He left you." Days blurred into nights as she lay in the hospital. The pain in her leg was constant, but the deeper pain, the one in her chest, was unbearable. Depression crept into her thoughts. She felt alone in the world, betrayed and hopeless. Yet, slowly, painfully, time moved forward. Nurses came, doctors treated her, and her mother never left her side. Over 2 long years, Peju learned to walk again. The bandages were removed, her leg regained strength, and she could move without pain, but the scar inside her heart remained raw. Finally, one morning, standing in front of a cracked mirror, Peju looked at herself. The girl who had cried, who had been mocked, who had been abandoned, she was gone. In her place stood a young woman with fire in her eyes and a determination that could not be broken. Peju made a decision. She would leave the village behind. She would not let betrayal and heartbreak define her. She packed her few belongings, said goodbye to her mother, and boarded a bus to Lagos, a city full of noise, opportunities, and challenges. She would work, she would struggle, she would rise. She was determined to rebuild her life brick by brick on her own terms.
Peju had started a new life in Lagos, working hard to leave her painful past behind. She found work cleaning houses, sweeping compounds, and doing small chores for wealthy families. One of her employers, Madam Tina, lived in a grand mansion in Lekki. The house was huge, with tall gates, flowering gardens, and marble floors that gleamed in the sunlight. Every day, Peju swept Madam Tina's compound, her mind focused on the work. Madam Tina was kind and generous. She would give Peju food after work, sometimes new clothes, and always spoke to her with respect. One morning, after finishing sweeping the compound, Madam Tina called her inside. "Peju, come in, have some breakfast," she said with a warm smile. Peju hesitated, her hands still dusty from the work. "No, Madam Tina, I'll be fine here," she replied softly. But Madam Tina insisted. Peju entered cautiously and sat on the couch. The coolness of the marble floors and the smell of polished wood made her feel out of place, like a stranger in someone else's world. As Madam Tina disappeared into the kitchen to fetch breakfast, Peju's eyes wandered around the living room. Her gaze fell on a large framed photo hanging on the wall. She moved closer, curiosity pulling her in, and then her heart froze. It was a wedding photo. Madam Tina stood there, radiant in her traditional attire. But beside her was Femi. Femi smiling in a beautiful agbada, looking proud and happy. Peju's breath caught in her throat. She felt like the floor had dropped from beneath her. anger, shock, heartbreak, they all collided inside her chest, making it hard to breathe. Just then, Madam Tina returned, holding a plate of steaming breakfast, cheerful as ever. "This is my husband, Femi," she said, placing the plate on the table. "He travels a lot for business, but he'll be home this weekend. I miss him so much." Peju's hand trembled as she picked at the edge of the plate. Her mind raced with questions and fury. How could Femi betray her like this after everything she had done for him? All the love, the sacrifices. Was this what she had been rewarded with? Her anger boiled over. She pushed the plate aside. "I can't eat," she said, her voice tight with rage. "I have a runny stomach," she lied, her voice trembling, and without waiting for an explanation, she turned and ran out of the house. Madam Tina stood frozen in the doorway, her eyes wide with shock. "Peju, wait!" she called, but Peju did not stop. Outside, Peju's heart pounded, not just from running, but from the storm of emotions inside her. Betrayal, heartbreak, anger, and the burning need for answers. She knew in that moment that she could not forgive Femi. She would confront him, she would demand the truth, and if he refused, she wanted revenge. Determined, Peju visited some local criminals she knew. She borrowed a gun, her mind sharp with years of pain and betrayal. She planned carefully. She would confront Femi, demand answers, and make him pay for his wickedness. That weekend, Peju arrived at Madam Tina's mansion as usual, broom in hand, her heart thumping with a mix of fear and determination. She moved quietly, sweeping the polished marble floors and carefully dusting the furniture, all the while listening for any sign of Femi. Then, from the open living room window, she heard it, the unmistakable voice of Femi. Her chest tightened, her heart pounding so loudly she thought it might burst. Every memory of love, betrayal, and heartbreak came rushing back. She froze for a moment, trying to steady herself. Madam Tina called out from the hallway, "Baby, I'm going to the salon for a while. I'll be back soon." The moment Madam Tina disappeared, Peju took a deep breath, wiped the tears from her cheeks, and stepped quietly into the room where Femi stood. Femi's head turned slowly, and when he saw her, his face went pale, his eyes widened, and his voice came out in a whisper. "Peju, how did you get here?" Tears streamed down Peju's face as all her pent-up anger and sorrow poured out. "Why, Femi?" she cried, her voice breaking. "After everything, after all I did for you, why?" Femi stammered, words failing him. His eyes darted around, guilt and fear flickering across his face. Peju's hands shook as she raised the gun she had borrowed. Her voice was low, icy, and trembling with fury. "If I can't have you, no one will." Time seemed to slow. Femi's eyes went wide with terror. Peju's finger tightened on the trigger. The gun fired. The sharp crack echoed through the room. Femi collapsed to the floor, his body limp, a pool of blood spreading beneath him. At that moment, Madam Tina returned from her salon. She froze, screaming in shock as she saw her husband on the floor. "Femi, no!" she shouted, her voice filled with panic. Peju didn't wait. She turned and ran, slipping out of the mansion before anyone could stop her, leaving chaos behind. Minutes later, the sound of sirens filled the air. The police arrived, quickly surrounding the house. Peju was caught, her hands shaking, tears streaking her face, and arrested on the spot and arrested. The mansion was left in chaos, Madam Tina crying over her husband, neighbors staring in disbelief, and Peju taken away and spending the rest of her life in jail. This story teaches us that Love should not blind you to reality. Peju's love for Femi made her overlook red flags. She invested emotionally, financially, and mentally in him, only to be betrayed. Love is powerful, but it should never cloud your judgment. Emotional attachment must be balanced with awareness of reality. It teaches us that revenge leads to destruction. Peju's decision to take revenge ended in tragedy. She lost her freedom and Femi died. Acting out of anger, even when justified, can destroy both yourself and others. It teaches us that greed and selfishness bring ruin. Femi's greed and selfish choices to take money, abandon Peju, and marry another led to heartbreak and eventual tragedy. As Peju's story comes to a close, remember, life can be full of unexpected twists, heartbreaks, and resilience. If you want to follow more gripping tales of love, betrayal, and resilience, subscribe now and join us for the next story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button now.